The Drevlians were a group that many have never heard of, mostly because they don't really exist anymore, and the main reason they don't exist is because of Olga. We're going to Europe, more specifically Eastern Slav territory, starting in the late 800s, early 900s. The Kiev and Roose had made their way into the area by whatever means necessary, and the local tribes were brought under their thumb and forced to pay tribute. I suppose one could say they were enslaved. Yeah, I know it's a bad joke. This happened specifically to the Drevlians in 883 when they were subjugated by Oleg the Wise. The Drevlians, by the way, did sometimes fight alongside the Rus, such as against the Byzantines in 907, also under the leadership of Oleg. And yes, Oleg sailed to Constantinople, then had his ships put on wheels and rolled on up to the gates. I know I'm not exactly the best judge of, gangster behavior, but that seems pretty gangster to me. Oleg died in 912, possibly after being bitten by a snake nesting in his dead horse's skull, which fulfilled a prophecy. Igor...
No, it's pronounced Igor.
But they told me it was Igor.
Well, they were wrong then, weren't they?
Whatever. He took over in 912, and we don't know a whole lot about his reign. What matters here is how it ended in 945, when the Drevlians refused to pay tribute to Kiev and instead paid it to a local warlord, causing Igor to lead an army in order to persuade them, which worked. He got his tribute. But on his way back to Kiev, Igor decided he wanted more, so he returned and demanded more. However, at that point, he was murdered. The account given for how he was killed was that his legs were tied to two bent trees, and that when they were released, Igor was torn in half. This might be true, it might also be the retelling of a classic Greek death. What matters is that Igor was dead, and the Drevlians saw themselves as having the upper hand in the situation. Which brings us to Olga, wife of Igor and mother of the new Grand Prince of Kiev,
Sviatoslav,
who at the time was only like 3, so his mother acted as his regent due to him being too young to rule. Yeah, that makes sense. God only knows what he'd have tried to make legal at that age. Now, Olga was not happy with the series of events that led to her being in charge, especially the part where some measly tribe may have ripped her husband in half. It was made even worse when not long after, the Drevlians sent an envoy of negotiators by boat in order to try and convince Olga to marry their Prince Mal, or Mal, I couldn't find the correct pronunciation, doesn't matter, who had been responsible for her husband's death. And this began Olga's revenge streak that ended with an ethnic group pretty much no longer existing. Olga told the envoy to return to their boat and wait for her to call for them the next day, but when she called for them, they were to insist that they be carried to her in their boat. And so that's what they did. They waited on the boat, and the next day, when they were called to meet with Olga, they demanded they be carried to her in their boat, which the people obliged, carrying them all the way to the rather large hole that Olga had ordered dug out, and the boat was dropped, men and all, into the hole before it was filled back up, burying the envoys alive. After this, Olga sent the still unsuspecting tribe a message that they should send, and I quote, their distinguished men to her in Kiev so that she might go to their prince with due honor. So a group of what's called the best men to govern the land were sent to meet her, completely in the dark as to the fates of the men who had come before them. And when they arrived, Olga had the men bathed in a bathhouse to prepare for their meeting. Yeah, except when they were inside, she had the building set on fire so that all of them either died inside or were killed if they happened to make it out naked and terrified. Yeah, Olga wasn't done. She sent word that she wanted to mourn at her husband's grave, which was located in Drevlian territory since that's where he was killed, and that they were to prepare a feast and have a lot of alcohol there for her mourning. And that's what they did. They prepared a feast for her, with many of them joining in with the eating and drinking and all that, well, until they were nice and drunk, at which point Olga had her people slaughter all the Drevlians present, some giving the number to be as high as 5,000. Also, apparently Olga herself didn't get her hands dirty during the killing, but she was rather vocal in her cheering on of the event. Personally, I imagine her watching all these people getting slaughtered while jumping up and down in a corner screaming, "Be aggressive, be aggressive." Anywho, she went back home, raised an army, defeated the Drevlians in battle, then followed their retreat back to the city of Iskoristan, the very same city her husband had been killed in, and laid siege to it. Now, this siege lasted for over a year when Olga got herself an an idea. She sent a message to the city asking why they were still holding out when all of the other cities had already given up and were peaceably paying tribute. This, of course, was a lie, a bold-faced lie, but the people in the city didn't know that. And when the city was willing to accept the same deal, all she asked in return was for them to send her 3 sparrows and 3 pigeons from every house. Which, yeah, that seems like a pretty innocent thing to want. Pretty low price for entry when it comes to ending a siege. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, except she had sulfur attached to the bird's legs with cloth, and at nightfall, she had her army light the sulfur on fire and release the birds, at which time they flew back to their coops and set fire to the majority of the city. Some people were able to escape outside the walls, but they were either killed outright or captured and enslaved. A small number were allowed to stay alive and were forced back into the whole paying tribute thing. After this, over time, what little remained of the Drevlians were more or less bred out of existence, so that the last reference to them as an extant tribe was in 1136. Yeah, Olga's husband was murdered, so she went about damn near wiping the tribe responsible off the face of the planet, then subjugated them and their culture to the extent that they no longer exist. Now that's some revenge right there. Oh, and I almost forgot, Olga is also a Catholic saint. Yep, Saint Olga, feast day on July 11th. She's also referred to as Saint Helga, apparently. So, this July 11th, don't forget to celebrate Saint Olga the right way by locking someone in a bathroom and setting it on fire. Or don't. Probably don't, because I don't want to be held responsible for that. Thanks for watching, folks. We'll see y'all next time.